We'll call the meeting to order at 7:03. Do we have any? Okay. Open it up to public comment. Thanks everybody for coming out. And if anybody has anything they want to say at the beginning of the meeting. Okay. I'll move to the consent agenda. To approve the minutes of Tuesday, October 15th, approve the minutes of Thursday, October 24th, and the special meeting on Wednesday, October 30th.
So moved.
Second.
Approve them as a block. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Does anybody have any public comment to make now?
Do you know why that's on there? Sorry. It's because we wanted to allow for public comment to happen prior.
No, I remember.
Okay, sorry. I know it feels a little.
No, it makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Because we were doing the flag request.
Yes, that's exactly right. So I just didn't
Let me
change
just
it.
pass it on to
No, that's good.
Peggy.
There you go, Peggy.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any board comments? Go ahead, Brad. We can't hear you, you're muted.
I went to the RTCC meeting last week, and things are going okay up there, but they are closing a couple courses for next year. One is dentistry, and the other course is child education. They only have one student in each of those classes, so they won't be doing them next year. So that's about it for them. They're struggling to get enough students for all their courses, though, really.
Okay, thanks for the update. Okay, then we'll move to the celebration of learning.
Okay. Middle school has the honor this week. Alvin, if you don't mind bringing up the quick slideshow. So just starting off with the why, what are we talking about? Tonight we're here to celebrate the student ambassadors. What you're seeing in front of you is taken directly from our communications plan. You can see 3.3 Student School Ambassador Program. If you look at some of the details, our students are already providing some of those services. We had a successful launch today, their first community activity, welcoming several people onto our campus, 16 I believe. A lot of people did some heavy lifting to get there, including the students. So rather than have you focus on the why, because this part we know it's in black and white, please go ahead and advance. The what we're doing. So we had students apply. This was not something we just went out and selected students from advisories. Yes, we had some ideas of who good candidates would be, but each one of these students had to come and interview, present what their skills were, what they brought to the table, and talk directly about part of their vision for the school, how they wanted to make an impact, knowing that initially their job was to be welcoming, to be knowledgeable about the school, to reach out, to be present at these community events. But each one of them came into our space in those interviews talking about ideas that even the adults are talking about. How do we improve this space, or how do we improve this part of our climate? And we were very, very impressed with those interviews. It's a daunting task to sit before 3 adults in an interview when you're a middle schooler, and they smashed it out of the park. Go ahead and advance through. So we began with, once the interviews had happened, we notified students that they were selected and held a training. So collaboration between Nicole Moth, our school counselor, Mary Shell, our community schools coordinator, and Sarah Palmer, our home to school coordinator. We devised a training to talk about what are the people skills you're going to need as you become this ambassador. How do you react when things go awry? What are some of the questions you might field? So we dedicated some time directly to that. And so here's our first batch. Most are in this picture. We have a total of 16, I believe. Mary's nodding her head. Yes, we had 16 students, and this was on their first day of training wearing their brand new merchandise. I could talk to you a lot about why you should be proud of these kids. We're talking more than 10% of our school is involved in this, wanted to have an active role in it. It's one of several student leadership opportunities happening right now. Again, representing the values of this community. Rather than me extol their virtues, I think it's far more impactful to be here directly from some of our students. All would have wanted to be here. These three were able to arrive. I'll let them introduce themselves. Two were already here, providing some opportunity for childcare for the event that preceded the school board meeting. So without any further ado, I will point out we have a match set, a 6th grader, a 7th grader, and an 8th grader. In total, we have students representing 4 of the towns that we serve that are part of the student ambassador group. So the spotlight's on you. What was your takeaway from the experience? What did you find this morning? How did you enjoy it? Or what do you see for the future? Lots of different questions you could be asked. Remember, you're already rock stars to them. And talk to us about your experience with this.
So,
Who are you? We'll start there.
I'm the school pastor. My name is Jude, and I'm in 6th grade. And today, this morning, was our first tour. A bunch of people came, and it was really fun. And I think the first one went quite well for the first one. I think we were all pretty good at it. So yeah.
Thank you.
My name's Trinity, and one thing I took away from the tour today was probably learning how to manage situations and how to be able to talk to other people that I haven't known at all that much. And yeah, it was a very fun experience to talk to other people and to represent our school.
My name is Evelyn. I'm in 8th grade, and I learned a lot about like flexibility, like working with situations and like adapting, learning to talk with others, and it was a really fun thing to do, and I enjoyed it.
Calvi, if you don't mind advancing through a few of the pictures. These are the students in action this morning. Bring you through identified spots. Bless you. And that's the final picture. Thank you.
Have you done there? They did a very good job.
Yeah, fantastic.
A lot of preparation went into it. They took it seriously. From interview to your very first successful event, we're talking 2 weeks. 2 weeks from sitting in front of us saying, I want to be a part of this, to going through the training, to pulling off your first. I mean, we have some, I wish all our events could happen that smoothly in 2 weeks. And a thank you to Mary Shell, who's here in the audience as well.
Do we know when the next tour will be?
I'll defer to Mary on that. I think there are a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, we do
we're
have
exploring.
dates set. I don't know off the top of my head, but yes, we do have 2 more dates set.
Any other questions about the student ambassador?
I think this is just awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
Were there any questions that you didn't know how to answer that people asked?
Not really.
I would say that they were so well prepared that they knew how to answer the questions, right down to what kind of trees the students chose to plant.
Oh, well.
All right, well, thank you guys very much for coming and sharing about that.
Thank you so much.
Move to the superintendent's report.
I think there was one question in the
Oh,
audience.
do we have an audience question?
Is this something that they're gonna maybe invite kids from other schools to attend, or is this going to be communicated to say like Tunbridge, Rochester, Stockbridge?
I absolutely think it could be part of our, yes, like certainly our outreach. We think part of why this is in our plan was to help generate more interest in regards to what we're doing. And so I absolutely see it as part of when we do our recruitment efforts, that this group will help
Thank you.
spearhead some of that. Yeah.
January 21 is our next, and March 18th is another one after that.
Thank you.
Real quick, I had one before I go to the superintendent's report. So I appreciate all your work and effort today. I'm sorry I didn't get to see you in action your first day. I made it into your building afterwards, but I was in Rochester this morning. But I hope you also know, and I've shared with Ms. Shao and Principal LaFlemme, like, I am also interested in regards to as we cultivate student leadership and voice, know that I'm very interested in hearing ideas that you have in regards to how we continue to increase programming that's going to benefit all of you. All right. So just know that's a big piece around student leadership, is that I certainly, from where I sit, want to hear your good ideas in regards to like, how do we keep creating more opportunities for students? So I look forward to meeting with you.
Thank you.
Sorry. All right. Now my report. So I did not see you last October. But as soon as I arrived back in my office, it was a bit busy. So I'm glad I had reset and refreshed, because there's been a few things happening. And so one of the agenda items that's later in the agenda is I do want to update the board in regards to some of the planning that I've already started doing with the Royalton Police Department and Windsor County Sheriff's Department in regards to having a community forum on public and school safety on December 9th. I am going to advertise that across the supervisory union because we have students attending our high school now, or middle and high school across all 10 towns we serve now. So I want to make certain folks know that we're hosting this conversation. I think in general, I see it as just the launching point to more conversations, I think, in our communities around concerns just about public safety in general. And so, I wanted to host this based on some concerns we had around school safety, but some of that school safety also linked and leaked out into town safety. So I'm hoping this is just a launching point in regards to many more conversations that we start to have across our communities in regards to how do we address some of the crime and concerns that we have that are occurring in our towns. And I think that part of being community schools is we need to, we can help hold some of that responsibility. So I just wanted to say, I think this is step one to what I hope starts to build more momentum to continuing to have even larger conversations. I know Bethel's already started some community conversations in regards to concerns around safety and crime that they're seeing in their town. I just think that's something across the towns we serve that other towns, we just got to work together to try to spearhead some of these concerns. So we'll talk about that more later. Again, I can't highlight enough the work that's been happening in regards to our foundational reading and in regards to phonics and phonemic awareness, but the Agency of Education highlighted some work that we've done across the supervisory union in regards to making shifts and better utilizing data to inform interventions and drive instruction, and changes we've made to revising our curricular documents. But they also really highlighted the fact that over 70% of your students in 4th grade at White River Valley Elementary School last year were proficient in literacy, which was an over 20% gain from 2 years ago. So that's huge. I think it's a real kudos to the faculty and staff that have been working incredibly hard at those primary grades. That doesn't just happen in 4th grade. It's the work that started in pre-K onward. But just wanted to highlight and put a shout out to those elementary folks in regards to those efforts. And then just let folks know that I continue to hold coffee and conversations across the supervisory union. We've had one in Royalton and Bethel already. Last week, I was in Sharon having a great coffee and conversation at the Sharon Health Initiative senior meal, which, again, I just gained ideas. So it was a great intergenerational opportunity where our kindergarten students joined me and the principal Haley at the senior meal, and this kindergarten students shared what they had gratitude for upcoming to Thanksgiving. And anyways, I could see Andrew and us partnering here for one upcoming in regards to senior meal here in town too. So just know about that. And I anticipate, it's on your agenda too, that, and we'll talk about it under the task force, but that we will have a finalized report in regards to the community engagement task force for next month. At least that's where I think we're headed.
Yes.
So I'll entertain any questions folks may have. I did share a briefing that came out of the Agency of Ed in regards to kind of their state of the state in regards to their thinking around sustainability and education funding. And so I mentioned this a bit last night at the full board meeting. I do think that it was a strategic on the administration's part to get that information out in front of the commission report, which we expect to have a draft of in the middle of December. I think that was absolutely intentional. In the sense of to really communicate the fact that, certainly from where the administration sits, there's a real emphasis on pursuing the foundational formula in regards to school funding in the future. There has been nothing that I've heard from anyone within the commission or the Agency of Ed at this point that leads me to believe that they're trying to have that start next year. Just know that, right? I'm hearing FY28 is the marker that I've been hearing from folks in regards to, proposals that might come in front of the legislature in regard to a foundational funding formula. And I'll take any questions folks may have. I did share that out. If you want a hard copy, let me know. I can print it off and get it in the mail for you. If it's easier for you to have a hard copy of that report instead of the virtual one.
Anybody have any questions for Jamie? Okay. Thanks. Move to the principals.
So I was also absent in October, so happy to be back. I'll go through my section, but I'm also going to tag Pierre in. I always highlight what we've been doing on in-services and also what our staff has attended for trainings. So the big one that I want to tag Pierre in, because he was able to attend, is that Malia Timmerman attended the Vermont Art Educator Association conference, where she was unexpectedly for her,
unexpectedly honored as an outstanding educator by her peers.
Yeah.
They invited me to present. It was humbling to see the admiration they have for her and that very close network, and she was truly honored. Again, reflective of the caliber of staff you have working. Thank you.
Yeah, Pierre was able to attend, so I just want to make sure he highlighted that. And I would add that we are still working to hire some people, but we just hired a paraeducator for kindergarten in Bethel. And then also we have an offer out for a new music educator, and I think that's done.
No, he accepted.
Oh, it's
He's starting
done.
Monday,
All right.
Sorry.
Awesome. So Ryan Garrett, I just want to make sure it was sealed.
That's all right. I'm totally fine with saying no. He is starting literally on
Fantastic.
Monday.
So I'm really excited because I know Ms. Quayle stepped away from us mid-year. And I would also just highlight, I think, connecting with the community. There's been just a ton going on from our first responders being present for some of our relocation drills, connecting with them. Also, we had 94% participation from parents and guardians at conferences in the elementary, so that felt busy and good and wonderful to have that much connection with families about their children's education. And who doesn't love a good snowplow tour? We did that on both campuses and made a big deal out of it. Vermont Agency of Transportation said they have never seen so much excitement about snowplows, and we know how to do it here. anyways, we sent them great pictures. They didn't. I don't think anyone else had cake for their snowplow celebrations, but we did. We had a really fantastic Veterans Day assembly that I really have to credit the high school and middle school for coming together with us to do. It was really wonderful to be able to highlight our veterans in our community, but also for me to be on both campuses for each one during the day. And just listen to the beautiful music and the nice words and just have that great event to bring the community in. And winter activity signups have gone out, and so really thankful to all of the parents that have helped us put that together, and that we're adding swimming for kindergartners this year. So that is exciting and new, and we're going to work through that new excitement. But that's headed out. And last but not least, Francie Slater has been hard at work working on our garden spaces, and there's going to be a defined garden space here in the elementary behind the school, and over in Bethel, the fence is up. So we're excited to start adding more garden to that place too. So those are my highlights. Tag, you're it.
So one of the things I'd like to keep pulling on the thread of is the challenge of opening the school back up to the community, but also getting our students out into the community, and the energy that comes from doing that successfully, seeing the elementary doing it, working with our first responders on drills, it's refreshing. And I just wanted to note that. Some things to pull out of my report. I'm very proud of a little bit of learning that we did as almost a proof of concept related to our boat shop. You're gonna get sick of hearing me talk about that, but it's an opportunity to look at the perfect learning environment. You have a seasoned educator who went out of their way to learn how to do this, to training on their own time over the summer, brought it to the students. We have a dedicated group of students, and here's where it actually comes full circle back out into the community. We had the opportunity recently to bring that group of boat builders to the Lake Champlain Maritime Museum. And I can't underscore the complete and total access our students had to the behind the scenes side of that museum. They were brought through the boat shop. They worked on some of the techniques they're going to be using in the near future, steam bending pieces with the same guy I built boats with 22 years ago. Literally looking at the boat I built 22 years ago. I'm not trying to make it about me. They saw what they were doing in terms of the skills they're learning applied on a scale of a 30-foot boat. Went right outside to see a recreation of a Revolutionary War gunboat built in Vermont. It was years ago, right? A recreation of this, and see the same exact techniques, the same kinds of knees supporting the structure, the same kind of shiplap construction kind of strakes. They were able to identify from that teacher learning how to communicate and build, the students learning the skills, applying them, going out to a museum, seeing these things on a wide variety of scales, and out of a few hundred years of small craft history. And then they got to go into the conservation lab and get a brief, how does this all connect to Vermont history? What's our role in the Revolutionary War? And each one of them worked on artifacts that were literally off a boat commanded by Benedict Arnold, sunk in a bay just south of that museum. Now, my wish is that every middle school student could have that kind of experience, an educator learning something new alongside, modeling that learning, building a beautiful hands-on project, connecting to an outside resource. And that might not be possible to always find a museum to connect with that. One of the concepts we pull out of that is, how are we creating those opportunities for students to have that direct learning connected to their place, rooting them in their own history, and learning skills and logical thinking processes that will benefit them down the road. Just a wonderful celebration of that piece. On a slightly less exciting note, we did too also have quite high participation in our student-led conferences. I don't have exact numbers, but the vast majority of our families were engaged in some manner. Teachers were operating well outside the window, meeting people where they were at when they were able to meet. A lot of good conversations and input came from that. And on a completely different note, I made the comment in the principal's report that we're adding resources. We continue to add resources to support our students, and I wanted to give some specificity to what that actually looks like. Through our community schools partnerships out there with the UVM, education, and Generator, we have some opportunities to bring some pretty learned people and people on their way up some nursing interns in to support and look at a whole school health model. Not that we're trying to turn it into a hub, but we recognize we live in a kind of a medical wasteland in Vermont. There are gaps in services. So looking at ways we can improve systemically both campuses for all our students. How are we interacting with the providers at Gifford Health out here in South Royalton? So those are the kinds of resources we're adding. Also on the mental health side, a meeting today as an example with someone from Clara Martin to talk about a variety of services they can offer students and families, whether it's running groups, coming into our schools, working with us on one of our 3 identified continuous improvement plan goals of attendance. They have some pretty exciting new programs that in a sense mirror what Jamie has done with some of our attendance issues in the past, finding how do we get them there, how do we remove that barrier, how do we incentivize, how do we get that routine built. So some pretty exciting things on the horizon.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about the high school?
Yeah, I have stuff for the third goal that Mr. Thomas asked me to report on. Just a few things. We had our fall sports banquet early November, which was a night for athletes, coaches, and parents to reflect on the high school fall 2024 season. We had a guest speaker from American Ninja Warrior, as well as several student speakers. It was a really great event with a really great turnout. A lot of people showed up, and our AD, Amy Parker, did a really great job setting everything up, which kind of goes for senior nights as well. Boys senior soccer game celebrated soccer and golf seniors for the boys, and then the girls senior soccer game celebrated soccer seniors for the girls and cross country seniors. This was again another really great event set up, and props to Amy again because it was just really great for everyone. And then lastly, we recently had our play at the high school, Midsummer Night's Dream. It was this past weekend, and all the performances, I'm kind of biased because I was in it, but they were great performances, great turnouts for all of them, and I really think everyone enjoyed it. So.
I'd like to second that.
And P.S., you rock for being able to step in for a principal on a principal's report like that.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for any of the principals or our student representative? Okay, then we'll move to Tara. Business manager.
Good evening, everyone. You have my report. It outlines what's happening in the business office throughout the month of November. As you can see, we had a lot of reports that were due last Friday. So we got those all in and taken care of. We are also working through fiscal year 24 audit wrap up, getting geared up and figuring out first quarter closeout of fiscal year 25, and then projecting for fiscal year 26. So it's a crazy time in the business office right now, going through 3 fiscal years. And then if there's any questions.
All right. Policy committee update. Rodney?
He wasn't after the last one.
Oh, no? Okay.
Rodney, you weren't there the other night.
I didn't make it there last night.
So the committee has voted out policy, these are revisions to C5, C6, and C7. And actually, last night they voted out a C8, so you'll see a C8 starting next month. This is your first reading. So what C5 is firearms. In general, we've changed the introductory sentence to all of them. Instead of stating that it's a policy, it's clear that it's a policy, so that language is removed. That still needs board approval, even to do that slight edit. But what we did do here in regards to student firearms is we define for the purpose of this policy that firearm school and expelled shall be defined consistent with the definitions required by state and federal law. And I think before maybe expelled wasn't in there in the prior one, but that's really it. There was nothing much changed in regards to this policy, other than that first sentence. Participation of home study students. We, again, cleaned up the introductory paragraph to the policy. And
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why does definitions, why does that first section need to be broken into a 1 and a 2 just for those last 2 years of age? Amy?
Because we wanted to, well, we were trying to make it as clear, probably as mud, based on if you're asking that question, right? Like, so truant mean, like, so if a student is, really they have to be in school between 6 and 16, okay? After 16, a parent could sign them out, and they wouldn't be truant, right? They can drop out. Same as a parent does not need to enroll their child before the age of 6. Okay, so a student that's 5, like they're never going to be defined as truant by statute. Okay, a student who the parent does not unenroll and they are still enrolled, right, and they don't attend school, they are up until the 18 where they can sign themselves out. As long as they're enrolled, then truancy could still be pursued.
Okay.
All right, so that's what number 2 is trying to say there. We were just trying to make it really clear that a student who is at least 16 years of age and enrolled and fails to attend and is not excused from school attendance would be defined as truant, versus like a parent could sign them out.
Okay. My only other comment on the student attendance one is, you know, I think one of the things that's been a bit more challenging for parents to navigate is, you know, in the past it was like, if your kid can go, send them. Whereas now there's the kind of the, are you going to infect other kids at school? You know, there's kind of that public health aspect of student attendance.
Had this great conversation
We
with Dr.
just
Ashley
met with
last
Dr.
night.
Miller last night. So Dr. Miller would actually say that they should go to school.
Okay.
That public health aspect's no longer in place. But I think we need to do some more education with our families, right? But I do think we need a really clear criteria around, across the SU under procedure, around excused versus unexcused, but frankly, what is our procedures in regards to dealing with chronic absenteeism, which is actually getting away from excused versus unexcused absences in general, and just saying, like, if you're missing 10% of school, then we as teams should be meeting, including the pediatrician having a seat at the table, so we're like all working together to figure out how can we best educate the child. And so what Pierre was talking about is that we just did apply for a grant through UVM for an additional $25,000 in funding to support our local pediatricians to join our target intensive teams once a month to support these efforts in regards to identifying what families do we want to come together with to wrap around to just make certain we're best supporting them. Because there are times that there is chronic illness that's going to result in the child not being able to get to school. And what plans do we want to put in place to make certain that that doesn't mean just because they're not here physically that they're missing out on learning.
Right.
Or it could be that they're missing out a lot and we need a joint effort to support what is it that's getting in the way, what's the barrier of getting to school, is it mental health, right? Like what is it, so that we can address that need to get the child back. or sometimes it can be misunderstandings around still thinking we're operating off of COVID protocols and procedures, which we're not any longer.
Right. But I mean, even without the COVID protocols, you've got like when you have the cold that's going through the whole school and you have your kid that's got a cold, like, you know, I guess we send them, but, you know, there's kind of that, like.
To a point we send them, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
to a point, you know.
They have 100.4 temperature. Yeah.
But, you know, when they're coughing up a lung.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anyway, I guess that doesn't need to be in the policy, but, you know.
No,
do
I
think
want to
making it clear-
use the adoption of this policy to work actually with our school nurses, our principals, and Gifford and Dr. Miller's office to actually really try to revamp a really clear procedure around this that we can unveil in our handbooks next year. Because I do think we're just, as an SU, that is not something I feel like we're in alignment with, how we're handling all those different circumstances.
Yeah, and I think making it clear to parents what
I
the
agree.
expectations are.
Yep. So I was thinking if we revise the new policy, I then was gonna say to the nurses and our principals, like, now's a perfect time. We have a revised policy, let's use this as an opportunity to get all on the same page around those things.
Yeah. Like if you know you're sending your kid in and they're potentially contagious, like if there was some like thing where like they could wear a mask or something like that, but you know, it's hard sending a kid in and expecting them to actually do it. You know? Anyway, look forward to seeing what the procedures are that you come up with. Okay, anybody have any other comments on what Jamie shared about the policy committee? Update. Okay, then move to the Community Engagement Task Force Committee. So we've been working on the report. We finished up we did the community survey, which, you know, the deadline for that finished up, and we got somewhat disappointing number of respondents, only about 70, which, you know, is not nearly as much as we were hoping, but we're now working on the report, or Suzette has been working really hard on the report, and we've met a couple times to help her out with that. And the goal is to have the report finished basically the first, week or
December, right?
yeah, first week in December, so that we can make sure that it's ready to go for the board meeting, and then there'll be a presentation of kind of major findings and things like that at the next meeting. Anything you want to add, Nancy?
Except Suzette's doing an amazing job.
She is.
I'm glad to hear
Doing
that.
a lot of
That's
work.
good.
Yeah.
All right. Move to action. Act to adopt policies C12 and B5. So we've had multiple readings of these at this point. So I would entertain a motion to, why don't we start with C12?
It's the Title X, right?
Yeah.
Title IX.
Title IX. Somebody.
I don't know what that was.
You just
Just somebody
put it up.
joining.
Yeah, Calvin, look at you. Right on that. Give Calvin a hard time sometimes.
Motion to accept as revised by the supervisory union.
This one's actually proposed. This one's
Oh,
a
this is
brand new one. Yeah.
Brand new.
It used to be embedded with B5, but we separated it, to make
Okay.
it cleaner.
Motion to accept policy C12 in its entirety as a new policy broken off of B5 as advised by the supervisory union.
Second?
Okay, do we have any discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Julie?
Yes.
Peggy?
Aye.
Aye.
Rodney?
Aye.
Okay. C12 is adopted. Now we've got B5.
this is an old policy, right?
This one's revised, yeah,
Okay,
so it previously tried to address employee unlawful harassment, but also pull in Title IX, which
Okay.
just, I get the intent behind it, but it was, we needed to fix that. So
Okay.
Title IX's been separated, and employee unlawful harassment has been cleaned up. And both of these have been reviewed by legal, and so, yes, we should be good to go.
Motion to
This one as well.
accept the White River Valley Supervisory Union's district school board policy towards employee unlawful harassment under the name policy B5 in its entirety as advised.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, we'll do another roll call vote. Julie?
Aye.
Peggy?
Yes.
Ed?
Aye.
Nancy? And Rodney?
Aye.
Okay. B5 is adopted.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we're back to Tara for the capital reserve fund request.
So this was for a service that was done to clean up and rebuild the Bethel ball fields over September and October by Green Mountain Mowing. And the cost for that was $33,404, and I'm requesting that we utilize some of the capital reserve funds to cover that expense.
This was the final repairs from, you remember we got flooded twice in a 12-month period?
Right.
So this was the final repairs.
I'm not saying that I have any inclination to vote against it, but why are we talking about the cost of it and doing approval after rather than before?
Well, the great question. It's because we needed to get it done, and so we knew we were going to be under the $40,000 threshold.
Okay,
So we didn't need to go out to bid for it.
okay.
And once Tara and I looked at your books, we decided that it made sense to use capital funds instead of your operating budget to address this one-time expense. And so if we were to use operating funds, we actually would need your approval, but anytime we tap into the capital funds, we need board authorization to do it. And the bid process and needing approval for the boards is if we're over 40,000.
So really, it's not that if this was already covered, we're just switching out which pot.
Well, I mean, I'm worried that it could, well, one, it's why we put these funds away, is for one-time expenses that are not predicted, right? And two, I mean, we build money in your operating budget to address some of these types of concerns.
Right.
But this felt like it aligned to why we put money away. Like it was flooding that took effect and did some major damage to our fields, and so it just felt like, if we had a roof leak in it, we needed to do it, like we would fix the roof, and then we would come to you and say, we fixed the roof, and here's what it costs.
The ball fields belong to us?
Yep.
Yeah, so I was somewhat curious about that, in that, like on this campus, we kind of have the high school fields, which are, maintained by us. And then there's kind of the rec fields, which are, done by the rec department and town funds. And so in Bethel, it seems like we're kind of maintaining all of the fields. And, is there any input from the town on maintaining rec fields?
There's been no input. I mean, my understanding is, I can dig into this more, that we've just, that's what we've done. But I'm looking at Andrew.
Forever. I almost wonder though about and it used to be the Valley Motors, the field directly behind that. I'm not certain about that specific one.
Okay.
But we use it.
Yeah, well, only
we
because
don't, though.
Well,
Like,
kids use it.
right, kids use it.
Or it's used it.
I
don't think, yeah.
No, it's just funny because, we have the kind of the rec school sports divide, between before sixth grade it's rec, and after sixth grade it's.
I guess, let me play devil's advocate.
Sure.
If we spend this money now, and then I've got a long memory, 6 months from now, I find out that there was a conflict and the town took priority over the school's functions and needs, I'm going to be upset in the future that we're paying and that they So is it, I mean, if it's ours, it's ours, and if it's theirs, it's theirs, and if we share,
We run all those
We
fields.
schedule
all
of
those
it.
fields are ours?
We
Okay,
schedule it all.
so that's what I mean. It's not like the town could say, oh, no, we have a thing, you can't have.
They do, everyone that utilizes those fields, to my knowledge, does requests for access to those fields, like they
Cool.
need these fields.
That's all my questions.
I know that because sometimes softball leagues ask for it, and if they're not getting an immediate response, they email me and say, Jamie, why am I not getting a response?
And that's actually what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking like the Pee Wee baseball was getting priority over, those are the same kids. But if, you know, a beer league softball, oh, we booked the field. Well, no, you didn't. The town paid $33,000
Unlike
to fix it.
Carpenter Field, where we don't oversee any of that, like,
Okay.
these fields, at least the 5 years I've been here, they've like been under the guise of us.
Yeah, no,
Doesn't mean we shouldn't revisit it.
right, and, you know, I think, you know, it's a little difficult because, yeah, like a Carpenter Field's been flooded twice and the town's had to get it redone.
We
and-
certainly don't own some of those fields because, like, for grants in regards to, that's why I'm getting a little confused by the questioning. As a district, when the town wanted to put in those walking paths as a school district, we needed to, like, give a thumbs up.
Right, no, I think we own those fields, right.
But we don't own Carpenter Field.
Right, we don't. I just mean like, you know, the fields are kind of, we're using the, you know, we use the middle school soccer field and kind of both soccer fields for middle school soccer. And then there's the softball field that we use and the baseball field, but then there's kind of also the t-ball fields and the other field that we don't. And, you know, like, so.
That we don't own or we don't use?
We own, but are primarily rec. And there's a lot of rec use of the facilities, which, again, you know, I'm not arguing.
I just wanted to make it clear to the public. I think they could have get confused thinking we don't own those.
Right.
Based on this conversation.
Right.
I
No,
just
we
want
own
to make certain folks know.
they're
we
getting
own them.
used by.
So it is, that part is different than,
Right,
we don't own Carpenter Field.
right. Yeah, no, that's what, Carpenter's the one by the law school, behind the law school. And as far as like, you know, having them under the aegis of the school actually is, you know, cost effective as far as, you know, the community funds, you know, it's, but it's just,
I
it's just
will
one of those
say,
things
you know,
that's
one
different
of
in the different
a
communities.
good example though, in case people ask though, is that the town of Bethel did get a bunch of grant funding to put in some really nice trails.
Okay.
Both on our fields down there that are walking trails now that we'll benefit from as a
Right.
district. But also some like biking and hiking trails up behind the school
Right.
as well.
Right.
So there is some partnership there in that regard.
Yeah.
Say lots of partnership.
Right.
Well, that's
Okay.
cool. They're actually contributing, that's a better answer.
Absolutely.
Do you want a motion?
Sure.
Oh, motion to use capital reserve funds to pay for the cleanup and rebuilding of the Bethel ball fields that happened in September and October by Green Mountain Mowing.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote again. Julie?
Aye.
Peggy?
Yes.
Rod?
Aye.
Aye.
Ray, sorry. And Rod.
All right.
Okay, so that's passed. Okay, on to discussion items. So we're on to a discussion on the proposed Phase 2 capital and facilities plan in relation to the recently failed bond vote, update and next steps. So yes, as everybody's, I'm sure, aware that the bond vote failed to pass by 10 votes. It was 759 to 749, so really close. We had a great turnout on the vote. And just unfortunately was just slightly not in our favor. So the question is kind of, we still have a lot of needs that need to be addressed with our facilities that, you know, we've identified, and like between the safety concerns and, you know, the we really do need a rehearsal space for the high school ensembles that can accommodate the demand for the size of the ensembles. So we need to come up with kind of a plan of what the next steps would.
Is any of that something that needs to be done in an executive session, or is it all public?
Shouldn't be exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it should be public. So, there's been some discussions, or just, like some online discussion, and then some just discussion with people generally. I think one of the things we have talked about is trying to hear from people, hear from the community, like what they would like to see going forward. So one thought is to have a couple of forums to hear from people about, what they think about what they would like to see, like for people who didn't vote for it, like what were they voting against, and for people who did, like what was really important to them in the plans, and so that we can then have an idea of what is something the community might support going forward. And so, yeah, I guess I'd open it up to everybody else about what they think.
And I say this, and I don't want to, I'm not being crass. We had like 10 plus information nights, and they were moderately to meagerly populated. You've gotten 70 of your community things back, and we had 1,400 people out of 7,000. I don't think whatever we've done in the past is getting them to tell us what they want, or they're not telling us what they want, because that is pretty poor participation for something that's supposed to be such a hot issue.
Sure.
People say that they're very concerned about it, and then they're not voting, not attending information nights. I mean, and not filling out surveys that you're mailing right to them about, hey, how do you think things are going in the district? So, I mean, what are we supposed to do more to extract information from people other than open our doors, send out surveys, ask them to vote? I mean...
Yeah, I mean, I do wonder if we would get more participation kind of after the vote, as there's been a lot more focus on the issue. And, I think that there are people who...
Well, I guess one of my issues, and my questions rather, you might be able to answer this, is if we come up with a revised budget, when would that be eligible for vote again? In March?
So you can vote on a bond twice in a year. So from the time we voted, so November 5th, you could hold one more vote.
In 2024?
Nope.
Oh, in a calendar, in a school year?
Until
It's an
next
entire,
November.
yeah, next November. Yeah. Not a fiscal year, right? Like, yeah.
Okay.
And how long are we allowed to put it out?
So I would need to warn it, just like the last time, between 40 and 30 days, right? So once you decided on the scope of project, we would get a warning done, you'd take action, and then, from that action point, we would vote between 30 and 40 days based on the date you warned it.
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, is it was incredibly close. Like, it was only 10 votes out of 1,500 people, and you're.
I have a motion which may be a solution if you'd allow it.
Well, we can hear.
That's what I mean.
motion,
I can
but-
make it and then.
Well, what's
Or
your-
how do you want me to phrase it? Do you want me to not phrase it as a motion at first so that it's
Yeah,
not?
why don't-
Okay. I'm thinking
do some
that.
discussion first.
yeah. The plan, as is, brought to vote again. Unchanged.
So, one thing that's an option for that is if the people really wanted to do that, then there's the revote procedure.
Well,
So-
that's what I mean. We go to revote.
Right, so I don't know that that's something that the
Unchanged.
board would do, though. That's something like if the community wants to do that, then you get people who are interested in doing it and put out a petition. And if you get 150 signatures or whatever it is, 5% of the voting public, 5% of the registered voters sign a petition to say that they would like to revote on the question. Then you revote the same exact thing, and that has to happen within 30 days of the, or 30 to 40 days of the submission of the petition. And we do the same question. The challenge with that is for overturning the result of a previous election, you need 2/3 of the number of votes that decided the question. So in this case, the no votes. So you need 2/3 of the number of no votes to be in favor. So you couldn't just get like, if only 300 people voted, that wouldn't be enough because you wouldn't have 2/3 yes in favor.
So
More
how
than
much
those.
change do we have to make?
So you need to get over 500 as 2/3 of 759. So somewhere around 500 and something voting yes in this revote election.
How much adjustment do we need to make to the plan?
Well, so that would be the same exact question.
But that's what I'm saying, how much do we need to adjust the plan to put it out for a new vote?
I mean, that would be up to, that would be completely optional. Like, we could go and ask, for a second bond vote, we could do whatever we wanted as far as amount we're asking for, we could change the plan entirely. It could be completely different.
So I guess that's why I'm asking, why can't we recommend the plan that we thought was a valid plan?
Well, you can't, you need to allow 30 days for reconsideration before you rewarn it. So you can't rewarn it tonight.
Oh, no, and that's not what I'm after, but I am inquiring as to what it takes to bring this issue back without losing a thing.
I mean, that would just need to be, we would just need to make that decision to do it that way. You know, I do think there were a lot of people who voted, I think, I'm not sure that I think that that's the best strategic way to go. You know, I think if we're looking to get it passed, making some adjustments might be the way to go. But, you know, I'm not, given the way that it's situated, you know, having the performing, what was called the Performing Arts Center, but really the rehearsal space on that side of the gym, you know, you can't really, make that very much smaller without, there's not too much you can do to the overall envelope of the project. Because you kind of need that walkway to get over there, and then once you're over there, you're just kind of sealing that whole side of the building. So unless you're going to make some sort of thing where it bumps out and then goes back in to where the gym is and then comes back out, which would be pretty awkward. You know, you're kind of getting that square footage. So I would be interested in hearing from kind of EEI what the options are as far as lowering the cost on that overall footprint, you know. Because, you know, I don't know how much, if we change the overall.
Let me tell you my
facade
logic.
to
My logic is the people that were naysayers, I don't think are going to change their mind if we shave a little bit of money off of this. But I think it's a possibility that the people that were unrepresented, that were pro this, may come out in a bigger number in a couple of months. But I don't think that there's probably anyone that voted no that we could convert, no matter how much time we were given, because they had some pretty dug-in arguments. But I think that there is a chance that people who were for the Performing Arts Center didn't vote at all.
Well, I'm not sure I fully agree, in that, you know, there were 759 people who voted no, and I think there's lots of different reasons why people voted no. And there's certainly a segment of those that are hard, you know, going to vote no matter what. But I think that there's also a segment that viewed it as something extra and extravagant, and I think part of the way that it was presented, particularly from the beginning, as a performing arts center and this kind of large, grand thing that we're adding on, did kind of make that harder for some people to accept. And if we, you know, I think there are some ways that we could pare things back a little bit. You know, we have 4 practice rooms in there, the private soundproof practice rooms. And if we took some of those out and like, you know, maybe made it so that instead of some of the stage upgrades, instead of being funded through the bond, are just solely done through fundraising. So, you know, basically all we're doing is providing the rehearsal space, and then some of the extras would be like privately fundraised. You know, I think that could definitely convince some people. So instead of being a fancy performing arts center that we're paying for the rehearsal space, and then the, you know, kind of extras are being privately fundraised for.
I think that you're onto something there, because a lot of the people that I spoke with, well, I know at least 2 people that came to our information meeting in Bethel, who, when I spoke to them in the afternoon before the meeting, had told me they were going to be voting no. They came to the meeting, they listened to the presentation, and when we left, they said, wow, I'm changing my vote. Because once they understood what the project really was. But the problem was the misinformation, calling it the Performing Arts Center. You know, people on Front Page Forum were saying, we don't need a new theater. You know, why aren't we using the Bethel Town Hall Theater? And it was just, you know, people were putting misinformation out there, and I don't blame people saying, oh, we can't afford to put a whole new theater on. So yeah, somehow or another, we missed the boat on that.
Yeah.
But like I say, I mean, these 2 women that came to our presentation, after you finished the presentation, they said to me, oh, I'm changing my vote. If only we could get more people to come.
Yep, that's a challenge.
But yeah, we have to somehow get that misinformation. We're not asking for a theater. And unfortunately, Performing Arts Center sounds like a theater to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was unfortunate since, you know, you want it to sound grand when you're fundraising and asking
Yeah.
people to give money to provide something cool. But, you know, taxpayers don't want to fund something that's, you know, sounds fancy and grand. So, you know, I think if we are going back to the voters, we can be more clear about exactly what we're asking them to fund. And I think part of that would be separating out some of the things that we're asking to be privately fundraised from, you know, kind of what we're saying taxpayers should provide funding for.
Andrew?
Yep.
Well, I was just thinking, I think part of our problem was it was a national election and there was a lot of uncertainty about the future. And people really didn't feel they could commit to something that was gonna go on for 20 years
Sure.
with the atmosphere that was around that election. And maybe, hopefully, once things progress, we get into a new year, maybe they will have a better focus on what's gonna happen and whether they really can afford to do this or can't. Whereas around that election time, I don't think any of us knew what the future was gonna be.
Yeah.
And I think that's where no votes also came from.
Yeah, no, that's true. Julie, what are you?
Yeah, I wonder, so I like the idea of public input, and I hear what you're saying about people not coming to meetings necessarily, but I wonder if I know it's a little ways out, but like we have an audience at town meeting, we have an audience at the school meeting, so if we have another proposal and talk to people or I don't know if we could do a survey there just to get general feedback and then come back and revise it. And I think it's worth doing another vote. Because it was only off by 10, so similar to what we put out there, I think it is worth doing another vote, but I do think we need to hear from people as well.
Right. Yeah, so I think, I think it depends on what we're looking for a time frame for construction. Because if we're trying to do construction, still next summer and the following summer, then we'd need an approval kind of by next spring. So I think the ideal would be to do the vote on, town meeting. But that would mean that we'd have the presentation the night before, and then those people could go vote the next day, which, we'd be able to be in front of people, which is good.
Is there a rush, though, on doing it this next year? Do you know what I mean? If the public's not ready for it or won't vote for it,
yeah.
Is it worth pushing through immediately, or?
The price is only going to go up.
Yeah.
That's true. And we do have, we have to do the the stormwater.
The water, yep.
Yeah.
We lose some cost efficiency if we
Right.
have multiple projects done at multiple times rather than them just coming and doing it.
We had more in fundraising and we're asking for lesser, you know,
Oh,
I don't
yeah,
know,
and
I
that is
just-
the other part. Is
Right.
There's the fundraising money, and if
Yeah.
we aren't doing the project, we need to get that money back, or the boosters do, because, you know, that, they have pretty substantial commitments on that front, and so.
At this point in the year, we probably have a pretty good number on how many tuition students we have, which means,
Dialing it in.
and which means we're probably gonna have more of a surplus because we weren't budgeting for a huge
You
number
mean
of
for
them.
next year?
Yeah.
That's me.
So we'd be adding more money to our capital fund.
Well, I mean, so this surplus wouldn't be audited until next year at this time.
Oh.
Do you see what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Okay,
Like-
so what about, I think that last year we had more people, more tuition students than we were expecting, so that would be getting added now?
Well, once the audit's finalized, Tara will
Yeah.
let you know how much we
Yeah.
ended up with overall based
But-
on expenditures and revenue.
But it seems like it's probably pretty possible, at least maybe a couple 100,000 might be
I
added?
don't think so.
No? Oh, oh well.
And we did use some already for the bathrooms in Bethel.
Yeah,
When we did those.
and now
Yeah,
the
remember, we paid
fields.
for that out of anticipated surplus.
Okay, okay. Oh, wow.
But, I mean, we could also, like, we were using 1.7 of the 2.2, and now it's, you know, down to, like 2.05 or something like that. But if we, you know, we could increase the amount that we're doing from the reserve fund to decrease the amount we're asking for a bond.
Mhm.
So we do have some flexibility with that sort of thing.
And then honestly, if something happens, they'll pay anyway, because then we'll need it for something like if something breaks or something. The capital fund is there, you know, it's our responsibility as stewards of it to keep some of it back. The more we use of it, the less we'll have if something happens. So people have to understand that they're going to pay if something happens one way or another. If we use more capital funds to build the center,
Right.
then if a roof collapses, it's gonna hit them in the pocketbook, and, you know, then things trickle down and it becomes a situation where they hardly even getting a vote on it. They're just getting socked in the pocketbook. So I
think it's a vote on the budget. Go ahead, Rodney.
Yeah, I think, you know, a lot of people are worried about all the inflation that we're having right now. It's like, you know, people didn't vote for it. I think some people I talked to would like to see the gymnasium bond be paid off before we do another addition. You know, there's a couple different factors. Reducing the size by, you know, a couple hundred square feet isn't going to change the price enough to make a difference. But I don't know. I think we'll see. This year's annual meeting goes good and the taxes don't go up too much. Maybe in the spring we could get it voted in. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if we do, you know, try again, basically a town meeting day to basically do something similar to what we're proposing now, we'll be able to use the fundraising money that we have now and try again. And if it's approved, then we'll be able to go ahead with the current plan. If it's not, then it seems like we wait until the gym bond is paid off and revisit it in, you know, 4 years and come up with a different plan. Like, we'll still need to do some of the project, but we have the reserve funds to do some. But it would be much less than, you know, what we would like to be able to do, so.
Right. I mean, inflation's been hitting pretty hard the last couple of years, so people are, you know, it's difficult, that's for sure. So, anyways, I'm going to have to step out pretty soon, so I don't know if there's anything else we want to talk about before I go, or.
Well, do we have somewhat of a consensus on kind of next steps? Are people okay with, like, doing some sort of a forum in the next, you know, in December sometime to gather feedback from people about just give people a chance to speak about what they think about the next steps for the project. And then we can kind of come back at our December board meeting or our January board meeting and kind of settle on a plan for how we want to proceed.
Do you feel that that gives us enough time to get it on for town meeting if we want to?
Yeah, I mean, if we approve it in some sort of like amount that we're requesting for the second try in January, then there's plenty of time to get it approved for 30 to 40 days before March 2nd.
I think tentatively, I'm in favor of any plan that gets it on town meeting's ballot. I have opinions as to the funding, but getting it on the ballot,
Sure.
I agree.
Is that reasonable, Rodney?
Yeah, that sounds okay, yeah.
Julie?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. All right, so we'll talk about figuring out a date for that later, but we can move on to the budget draft so that Rodney can be part of that discussion.
So on the student support draft 2, the only change that I made there was reducing the projected healthcare increase from 18% to the 11.9% when Beehive released their rates. So that brought that projected increase down from 215,000 to 162,000. Which equates to just a little over a penny on the tax rate. And then in the general education draft 1, just a reminder, both of these drafts are status quo based on who you had employed at White River Unified District as of September 25th, when I pulled down the contracts at that time, and based on current programming that's happening within the buildings. So the only change as far as FTE you'll see is down at the bottom. Global citizenship, I had the breakdown currently as a 4.6 FTE, which is a change from the 4.7 FTE that was actually in the fiscal year 25 budget. So overall, the increase there with salary and benefits only, it's just a little over 266,000, and I apologize, the tax rate didn't print, so it would be 0.0246.
Okay. Pending whatever
Pending all of
happens
it,
with
right.
yield and the
But
CLA and everything.
Just some boards said it would be helpful to know when
Sure.
we're sharing percentages, like
Yep.
based on last year's penny. What are you talking about?
Yep.
So next draft is the full budget. It's all line by lines, revenue, assessments.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, it'd be great to see the revenue. You've been working on the revised ADM. Do we have a sense on if that's gone up or down or?
I cannot speak
Yeah.
to that. That is Ray's department.
And we'll we have an idea of our ADM or
That comes out in
LT?
part of our 12.1 and 12.15 information that we
Right.
get from the AOE.
Okay, so we'll have that for next time. Okay, yeah, I mean, I think,
As long as they're on time.
I mean,
can't totally
as
bank on the
I
AOE.
don't know where you're at as a specific district. As an SU, we seem to be down about a percentage. But I can't speak to what that means for you. And frankly, right now, a lot of the wrestling we're doing is not actually in your district. It's our school choice districts and schools that receive our kids actually correctly identifying
yeah,
them.
I mean, it seems like our enrollment in the high school we know is up just to.
But a lot of that's not ADM related.
Right, but I think some of it is because our senior class that graduated last time was
There is some.
smaller.
There's
so-
some, but they came from the middle school. You were still counting those kids.
Right. Right, but I mean, like, it's, you're comparing your
It's
senior
really
year.
to your incoming kindergarten.
Kindergarten, right. I don't really have a sense for. how
That's,
kindergarten-
it's not, there's not a big difference in that regard.
Okay,
I would estimate that I wouldn't think you're gonna see a big boom in ADM based on Bethel and Royalton itself, and that trends with the population projections we've been getting.
right, but we should see some revenue increase though.
Yes, that is definitely the goal.
Okay. Well, does anybody have any, I mean, so far it's basically been just keeping the status quo. So,
Yeah, essentially what you have in front of you is a status quo budget.
yeah,
No
so,
changes to programming at all.
so we can see what that looks like next month, as far as,
Yeah, and then if you give us some direction, right, like in regards to like, yeah, we're not feeling comfortable with this, then that's, as administration, we'll go back and react. Like, we know it's tough budget time, so we have not been proposing any expansion of programming.
right. Does anybody have any comments on the budget proposals? Okay. All right, then we'll move on to community forum on public and school safety. So Jamie touched on this in his superintendent report.
Yeah, so some additional information will be coming out to community members the first of next week, which is 2 weeks out from when we plan to hold the forum. We're going to hold the forum here in Royalton. We'll have dinner and childcare provided. It'll be dinner from 5:30 to 6, forum from 6 until 7:30ish probably. We're looking to try to have it be a bit of town hall style, and then based on amount of attendance, possibly even some breakout circles to engage our public into some additional smaller conversations that we can solicit like feedback from, like tabletop, in regards to generating questions folks have about security, questions folks have about community in regards to policing that's happening in their communities. And again, I see this as like a stepping and launching point to larger conversations that need to be had as a school community, but frankly, I think in general, as White River Valley communities. And so I'm meeting with Sheriff Palmer next Monday afternoon to do some additional planning in regards to Windsor County Sheriff's role in this. I think it's important for folks to know in regards to Windsor County Sheriff, we have a small contract in regards to at the SU level for Windsor County Sheriff to provide community resource officers to our schools on a weekly basis to support, frankly, building principles in regards to welfare checks, truancy concerns, doing community engagement in regards to our school community around types of programming resource officers would do. Also to be a backup to Royalton PD. There's been times at the high school level where we need additional support in regards to some investigations that we are doing here, where Royalton PD has seemed to be stretched a bit thin, where we need to utilize Windsor County sheriffs. Sometimes that becomes mostly where Windsor County Sheriff may actually be contracted with one of our sending towns and the student coming here, but some of those behaviors are actually occurring in the school, but also in the town that they choose to come here from. And so that would be the role of Windsor County, because I'm sure, at least for some folks, as we say here in Royalton, you say, well, we have Royalton Police. What's Windsor County's role? I will say to you, I'm incredibly thankful for Windsor County's support in upholding our contract with them and with us in regards to the recent concerns and threats that we had towards this campus, because Windsor County were the responders to those students' houses and conducted and led the investigation into that. So I was incredibly thankful that we had that partnership with them, because the sheriff was on the phone with me that morning multiple times, and they were able to respond with multiple sheriffs to places where we had concern, and also were able to provide support here at both the Royalton and the Bethel campus in regards to providing additional coverage that day. So I'm also going to be working to meet with Chief Stolnacher, Loretta for Royalton PD, because certainly there is the school aspect to some of these concerns that have been stated, but there's also community concern as well as some things that are happening not on school property, not during school hours, but out in the Royalton community, of which I think we need to be working hand in hand in order to address, right? So I see this as us working as a team on this in order to address folks' concerns. So I wanted to have a conversation no matter what with us. My hope is that this spearheads additional conversations in regards to the citizens of our communities, because I think they have concerns that I think they're looking to have folks address. School safety-wise, but also greater community safety-wise. And so that's the focus on December 9th. Like I said, I'm assuming we're going to get fairly significant turnout. That's my hope. And so we'll put it on listservs, you mean community listservs. We'll get information out to families. I'm going to ask that Bethel and Royalton towns help us push this information out too, to the way that they have to be able to communicate this, because like I said, I see this as school, but also greater community conversation. Speaking
of towns, I just wanted to ask you real quick. You said that Royalton PD and the sheriff are part of the law enforcement team supporting Royalton. Is it just the sheriff supporting Bethel?
Yeah.
In the same capacity? There's no.
Windsor County Sheriff supporting us because of our contract.
Oh, right,
not
right.
because of the town's contract.
But we have the extra of Royalton where Bethel has just the sheriff too.
I wouldn't use just. I would say that the sheriff I have found to be very responsive.
Oh, no, I wasn't. No, I wasn't.
Yeah.
No. And the only thing is, we're also, nothing has come up with any involvement with the state police. And we're fortunate enough to have a barracks in between the two schools, and
the state police have been aware of all of this as it's been playing out. And I think they are as stretched as thin as lots of sectors in regards to education, like frontline different workers, right? That's my sense. And so, I think that they've been challenged to provide the type of coverage or support that even I would have seen from them, frankly, 4 years ago, right? Like I've had different things where I've needed them to go to the Newton school because I had a concern, and they were there all day. Like it was clear to me earlier this year in the fall, like they were not going to be able to respond. Because they're stretched incredibly thin, is my sense. So, but these are all good conversations, I think, that we need to have on that night, right? Like around the realities of it. And I did put a feeler out, and they may be able to come. Like I did reach out to Vermont State Police too, just so you know. I just don't have a confirmation yet whether or not they're going to be able to attend. But it's not like I said I didn't want them to. I just had confirmation from Royalton.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I really appreciated the Windsor County Sheriff's communications kind of directly about the situation on that day. And, I thought it's difficult because people want to hear from the school about the situation, but it's mostly, it's not the school that's doing the actual investigations and stuff. So it'd be great for the school to be able to kind of like say, here's the situation from our point of view, follow, go here for more updates from the police and stuff, so having kind of this discussion where we bring all the people in and kind of, I don't think people quite understand that kind of the different roles that, the school isn't the one who's going to the houses of students and, whatever. But yeah, and also just to have a discussion about what parents want to see from communication and in a situation like that. We don't want to unnecessarily alarm people by putting things out but I think people want to hear kind of as soon as there is any kind of threat that's known about. And so, coming up with a procedure of like as soon as a threat is found, like what the communication is going to be, and would be good, so that everybody's knows ahead of time, and there's not any worries about not getting information. Anybody have other comments on this topic?
I think it'll be really interesting. I'm going to be there. I'm curious to see what the conversations are.
Yeah, and given how, so like I said, my planning is open it up, overview, introductions, a little town hall conversation that's facilitated, and then break off into some smaller subsets, specifically if we get larger. If it's a group of 20, we're probably going to stay together and have it be like a town hall. But if we get 100, like we're going to need to be prepared, right, to, I think, have some organized conversation in some circles. The only other question I have is whether or not the board, I was going to suggest, I thought it would be worthwhile for the board, or I could do it on your behalf, to reach out to our select board in each town to see if they had any interest in joining.
Certainly don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, no, that's great. Very good.
We're already in Bethel, we're
I know
having
you're
a
already
big
doing-
meeting
yes.
on Monday night with the select board, so I don't know if they'd be interested in
Well,
voting another one.
I was just going to reach out to their chairs to say, hey, we're having this conversation, school, but I also think it's community.
I think any of them that are vested in this and feel that they want to be vested in this should be welcome. Very much so. Yeah.
So you want me to reach out to the chair
Sure,
of each
that'd be great.
board?
Yeah.
Yep, I can do that.
I can bring it up, I'm gonna be at the November 25th meeting too, I can bring it
Great.
up there.
Oh, please advertise it. Yes,
Yeah.
that'd be great. And no, I think we'll have the flyer already, even Nancy, so I could get you some printed copies.
Oh, that'd be great.
Good. Yeah, hopefully we can, I don't know, we had the community conversation on the capstone project that I think we could have maybe done a better job of getting the word out, and because it was not well
I
attended.
agree, but I'm not
So,
going to own that one.
Yeah.
That was not my organized meeting, but
Yeah.
I certainly will address it with the administration.
All
But I
right.
would agree with you.
Yes, and making sure people know that there's food and childcare and everything like
I
that.
don't think that would be a problem with
helps.
this meeting. but
Good.
I hear you.
Yeah. All right, unless anybody has anything else on that topic, we'll move on to public comment. Any public like to?
Comments, yes.
Go ahead, why don't you state your name and,
Sorry. I'm Christina Blake. I have a child in the school. I've chatted with the school. I have read the newspaper article. I have read the police update. And it's one thing to read those and talk to the officials. It's another to know the people involved and know that there is not accurate information in the written pieces. It would be nice to know that the investigations are thorough, all the way thorough. That our kids are safe in this school when said individuals might be a 3-minute bike ride to our school. I don't know how many of you have been here 23 years ago, but I don't know if anyone remembers Parker and Pollock. Yeah. Right?
Yep.
The 2 boys who were just being boys, who did all kinds of naughty behaviors that escalated until they murdered the Xantov couple. That was their end event. I don't want our community to have an event like this. I really want to make sure that things don't get brushed under the rug and just said it's a boy being a boy. When you point anything at somebody and you fire, I don't care if it's a BB gun. It's intent. A slingshot, anything, it's intent. I really want our kids and our staff to be safe. So I really think this needs to be not dismissed. I mean, the amount of school incidences, you have the number, I don't know, is phenomenal.
Overwhelming.
Oh, it's phenomenal, and I really don't want everyone to brush this off, please.
Right.
I won't actually drive on Happy Hollow Road anymore. It's the backside to my hill because of incidences that happen, because of threats when you drive by. It's just not safe in some places, and I think we need to address this as a community. I don't know how the best way is, but please don't brush this away. This really happened.
I think when, I'm Cindy Blake Coussant, I'm her sister, and Connor's my nephew. So I think when you ask, what is the community looking for? We're looking for the school to show us that you're competent at protecting the children that are here on this campus at that day, at that time. That you have a plan, that plan has a start and a finish, and you know how long it's going to take the Royalton PD or the Windsor County Sheriff's Office, which is going to be a long ways away. You know where the kids are going, and I know some drills have happened because we talked, our principal Bowen knows us well, because we're more than willing to say to your face what we're going to say in public.
Right.
It's only fair, right? All that stuff, we need to see that you know what to do with and that you're taking care of it. And that you understand that the whole term, non-viable threat is a crock. I mean, sometimes it's right, but the FBI gets it wrong and they invented the darn thing. It's just not always accurate, and you know that. So those of us who are thinking, oh, we just saw this guy in Maine shoot a place up and they investigated him, and so did the Army National Guard, because we were called in because the family was concerned, and everybody investigated him, and it was a non-viable threat until he pulled the trigger. So non-viable threat doesn't mean a heck of a lot to me.
And when you go into
What it means to me is, and when you know that the person in question has access to regular guns in multiple situations, that doesn't feel good either. I mean, we avoid certain areas because of certain things. So it's important to know that what happens in the community, what's happening up there is overflowing here. And what's happening here is overflowing to our homes, which we're not doing anything with that. And we just need to know that when Connor comes to school, he's safe. As safe as you can make him, because there's no perfectly safe. That just doesn't exist. I actually thought, I used to live in this happy bubble and thought, I grew up in this town, and God, back in the 70s and the 80s, we were on the roads and we did what we wanted, and it was so safe, and no, there were not school shootings. Well, I did a research, and this is not something that was invented in the 90s or the 2000s. They certainly upped the ante with a type of weapon, but it's been going on since the 1700s. So welcome to the world. It just didn't happen very often. It was a different methodology. So that's what we're looking for. And if that isn't happening, then we're not feeling as comfortable as we could. And I gotta tell you, this whole attendance policy thing, if I'm not feeling like it's safe to send Connor to school, that shouldn't be a truancy thing. To me, I need to know that you're taking care of business. And if the day after it doesn't feel like it, then I don't think it's fair to send it.
May I?
Speak to this, or-
Well, I was going to say, as a parent, I'd like to speak back.
Sure.
Well,
I have an elementary and a high school, so they just happen to be both here right now, but soon one will be over at the other campus, and we're making some progress. But as a parent, I can tell you that I'm not comfortable with the shape of either campus in terms of security. As a parent, having two children in two different places in the system, I'm not fully happy with the security of either campus, which is why I'm here asking to do certain things and trying to work with the board. And I don't think anybody up here has even hinted that they don't want to put every resource into security. We sometimes we may be a little lost as to what direction to go next, because we also have to abide by certain rules, and we have to look out for even that one troubled kid who has their own individual issues, and we have to play by certain rules. But I believe that my children go to school every day and are relatively safe. I believe that people are watching out for them. Anything can happen, I understand. I have the same feeling in my chest that you do, especially the day after. Speaking as a parent, if I didn't feel like sending them the next day, I wouldn't. If I didn't feel like sending them for 4 days, I wouldn't. A week, but that's as a parent, because you can't take back bullets. I'm sorry, it doesn't cut it. So in terms of truancy versus safety, as a parent, I'm always going to pick safety. And that's me. As a school board member, I can tell you that I feel that we're doing our best to improve this every day. And this is one of the 5 top things that we talk about in my time that I've been on the school board. So,
what is the plan
Well,
for improving safety?
Well, one of the things was with the bond issue, trying to make safe entrances to both buildings. That is
here's the
so
catch.
important.
You put 2 things together.
Right.
Like if you want one thing done, you tackle that one thing. You eat the frog. You tackle the hardest thing that needs to be done and separate them out. Because you are taking a community of people who are lower income, a lot of us, people with first and second jobs, a lot of retirees that are on fixed incomes. And so when they look at, like you said, how it looked like it was going to be some big, dramatic, grand thing that the people couldn't afford, they said no. Even though they all know, everybody knows we need safety. But that was the big thing, right? Sorry, go for it.
I need to go.
Please.
We all need to go.
Please.
I'll be happy to mention that to the select board, up for the South Burlington Select Board. And change of subject from the safety thing, I was really interested to hear your discussion on the bond. And thank you for the work that you put into that. And I was totally with what you said about like, put that back out there on the town meeting, and then I heard what Andrew had to say, and I was like, oh, that makes sense too. But I was just gonna say that maybe some of these winter sports meetings, or not meetings, games, if you guys had like a table out when people are going and coming. I know it's more extra work for you guys as volunteers, which sucks, but, and I know Andrew's a coach, so I don't know where you guys have the time to do all that you do. But that might be a good place to catch a few people with the information. And I just, as you were saying that about the safety thing and separating that, I don't know, I heard these folks say that, I guess it makes sense to me, it's the bond being one big thing when you're going in to do any sort of construction and, you know, renovations. That it seems to make sense to do it, to have all at once. Let's do this, this, and this, and this when you go in for that. So that's what I would say.
I love that idea, and I would be more than willing to go to games, because I like going to games anyway.
Right.
I see, I don't get to a lot of games, but I get to theater and I get to chorus and music, because that's what my kids, but every time I've gone, I've seen a table.
Yeah.
And at this point, Mrs. Lamson practically walks around town with a sandwich board explaining what it was. She's put so much time into explaining.
But I think when we had the tables out, it was the Performing Arts Center, you know, like it made it sound like more than, like, I think what we didn't convey, and the reason why we want to do these things together is, you know, it's not, like, we kind of identified the things that are needed. Like, that we need a practice space that can fit our band in a way that doesn't, you know, that is safe for them. And if we are doing that, we're doing the back entrance at the same time. Like, that is part of that project, and if we do the back entrance separately and then do that, then we're basically redoing the same thing twice.
Put that in the information stuff.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. We need to be clearer about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it needs to be conversation.
Yep.
Because I poured over, the tables aren't inviting for me to go in and say, I'm gonna pick this up and I'm gonna read it and I'm gonna, you know,
I know, it's
absorb
tough,
it.
it's tough.
And I got the informational in the mail, and I went over it and over it, and I went, if it was just the safety stuff, I would say, I mean, there'd be no question in my mind. You could have said you wanted bars on every window. I mean, it could have been anything crazy, and I'd have gone, yes. But performing arts theater, you know, I don't know what the band needs for this space to be safe. It doesn't make sense to me. They always were fine. It was fine in the 90s. It'll be fine in the 2000s. I mean, it's fine. It's can suck it up. So I think you have to have an open mind, and you have to have real conversations. One, if you want to change people's focus. Mine isn't changing unless I understand why.
Right.
When you got the information, did you hear the part about that children are actually being harmed because of the sound level?
I heard that.
Okay.
You know,
And
But then I wanted to know, so how are you determining that? What is your methodology of measuring that? I get medical questions, medical people, right?
A decibel meter, I think was used, but.
If it doesn't lead me to an answer,
Yeah.
it's, you know, I shove it
Sure.
away and I ignore it.
I mean, I think we need to figure out a way to get, like, when we had people in for our informational meeting here, you know, we only had about 10 people show up. But, like, we walked down to that space, and if you go down to that rehearsal space and picture 60 people in it, like, it's clear why we need a bigger space, you know? And so, you know, we need to figure out a way to get more people into the building and more people involved in these discussions. But, you know, that's a big challenge.
I think timing would be
Yeah.
picking a different time. Like, some of us, evenings aren't our good time.
Sure.
So if you want to get me to, I mean, only because you're talking about safety, did you drag me out of the house after dark? I mean, I'm up at 3:30 in the morning. This is not my peak brain time.
And take out the bells and whistles, like you were saying, because this area, people don't have a
Right.
lot of bells and
Sure.
whistles. So if you take that out of it, it's a functional thing. Make it
Yep.
a functional thing.
This is what has to, this is why it has to be.
Right. Well, going back to your conversation about, or your comments about security, one thing I would say is, you know, I was in touch with Jamie throughout the process, and I want to just put the word out there that we do take this stuff very seriously. I can tell you that Jamie was taking this very seriously. And you know, he's come up with this idea of having the community forum, and I think one of the big things about that is bringing all the stakeholders into the same place, because, you know, we are doing everything that we can on our end, you know, of if there's a threat, he's putting a lot of pressure on the Royalton PD and the Windsor County Sheriff to make sure that it was followed up on and that they were taking it seriously. And, you know, like, we can work on our communication, I think, for sure. Like, the communication that's going out is something that we need to work on. And you know, specifically with the viable threat thing, that was like the specific wording in the social media post. That's what that was referring to. But then I think people are more worried about, is there a threat in general versus what that specific threat was that the communication was about. So, like, that's the sort of thing that we need to work on with our communication. But I will say we definitely take things very seriously. And you know, if there's a kid that is presenting a threat, they're not coming in the building, right? Like they are no longer part of this, you know, they are removed from the student body. Like that's happened multiple times since I've been here. And so we do what we can on that front to make sure kids in our buildings are safe. You know, we're not the police though, so we can't go, you know, make sure that there aren't access to guns or things like that. So that's where we need to bring,
What I'm asking
yeah.
is that I know the police report what it said. I also know the father, and I know he hunts avidly.
Right, yeah.
Okay, you can't be in a house,
Right.
avid hunter, and friends that are avid hunters and all have guns, but there is no guns in the house. Like,
Right.
it was in the report. If everyone's going by the report, everyone's going by the newspaper piece, that both say that, it's not legit, and when the community knows it's not legit, and that's what's
Sure.
being put out there, it's concerning, and that's the information you guys are getting, then you may not feel like the threat is as much as the community is feeling.
Right.
So, and the community that lives up on that road knows how much there is a threat. So when you go to this thing on December, just beware, this is what people know.
Yeah, sure.
And this is their concerns. This is a real threat, and
That's why we want to hold the conversation, right?
And I work at the VA, and I talk with the veterans, and they laugh in my face. They're like, if you can put somebody's eye out, you can kill somebody with a BB gun. They know this, and they laugh when you say it was a non-threat, non-weapon, non-firearm, not shot, you know, all those terms. They laugh at it. But I think we just, my apologies, I'm overzealous about it, because, you know, our kids are our
Sure.
life. So, but thank you for listening, I appreciate it.
Well, I hope you'll come on the you know, December 9th meeting, because like we want to bring, it's not just us, like the police here as well, so that they can hear the concerns. You know, this needs to be a community-wide response, and so.
I think too, you know, spending a little time in researching some of this stuff and looking at the psychology of shooters and medical, you know, there's a chance to kind of catch maybe this ahead. Like a lot of times they've experienced bullying and all this stuff. So if we eliminate that from the school, or we pick up on who's being targeted and we try to make a change for that, maybe if the school community can catch those triggers ahead of time, maybe that stops it before we ever even get it started. So that's just a thought of, you know, another avenue, because, you know, there's a piece of me that says, you know, these are children. They're supposed to, malleable minds, you know, they've got their future ahead of them, and we should be able to affect the change before some tragedy happens. And we
And I
don't
think
want any tragedy.
I think part of the complexity is that this is not just a school circumstance.
Oh, no.
Right?
That this
It's all
is
starting at home first.
right. So there's a lot of community aspects to this that are then spilling into the school. And this is not an isolated thing that, frankly, I would say even started at school. I actually believe this is something that started in the community that then spilled over into the school. And so that's why I think we have to partner with our community resources in order to address it, because frankly, I think we could continue to do everything and be 100%, and I'm not saying we are, and you would still have the same concern, because there are outside influences right now that are contributing to this worry, and I totally see it, it's real, and want to appreciate that it should be real, that we won't be able to just fix standing alone as a school district. We're gonna have to partner with the other pieces of the community in order to address your concerns. Like it has to be all working in the same direction in order to get to where you want to go to and where I think all of our aspirations are, because we can't do this part alone.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks for coming and expressing your concern. New hires resignations.
We got a music teacher. Music teacher.
Ryan Garrett, that's real.
So, and just a little background, Ryan is coming to us. I'm actually really excited. Usually I have the principal share this, but I had a really nice interview with Ryan. So Ryan's coming to us as our general elementary music teacher for the rest of the year at the elementary level with a doctorate in music, and has done teaching at all different levels, college, elementary, middle, high school, and had just had a successful long-term sub position at St. Albans Elementary School, and is not living in St. Albans, is living south of St. Albans, just so you know. But is also connected to some other longtime Vermont educators who I hold in incredibly high standing. I just think, considering we were searching for a music teacher when we were, that we're incredibly fortunate. So I really think this is going to be great for our performing arts program.
Great.
So I feel good about it.
And he looked at the calendar and said, sure, I can turn around a concert in a week. We'll see. He's ambitious at least.
That's right, you said he starts Monday and the concert's December 5th.
I didn't know that part was still on.
We'll talk to him when
We
he
may have
starts.
to delay
During the
that,
interview,
but
he
I
said
did not know that.
Just need him to do some
Every other part of his interview seemed really good. I didn't ask that question.
What are you gonna do for the concert? No, a deer, a
He said
female.
some call and response. We
Yeah.
may be all participating, but.
Now,
All
is he
right.
being hired just to finish the year?
Yes. Yep.
Then possibility?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. If it's good.
Okay.
If he does a good job and he's got
But
a
no,
doctorate
he's
in music,
committed for
sure.
this.
His reference
He
was
can
so
stay.
good, they wish they could add a music teacher to their, to St. Albans because they wanted to keep him. So they were really happy
Great.
with him.
All right, we don't have any other future agenda items. We'll have the report from the community, or the surveys next.
I
Month.
suppose the negotiations committee is going along. We're going to be meeting with them on the fifth with the teachers for the first time on the 5th. So not much has happened, but we are progressing. We've got our part ready, they're getting their part ready, and we meet first on the 5th to start.
Could we pick a date for kind of a community forum on next steps for the bond? I guess it might be difficult with.
Yeah, I'm a little
Competing
worried
with
with
the
December because of that
Yeah.
9th. Yeah. When I looked at the calendar, it seemed like it was going to be challenging with your concerts, but.
Sharon just moved their meeting to the 11th.
Okay.
There's a concert on the 12th, the high school concert.
I mean, could we do something that first week, like between the 2nd and the 6th? I guess there's
I'm
a
already
middle
out
school concert on the
Monday and
5th.
Yeah, there's
Tuesday
a-
that week. And we got negotiations Thursday.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And I would like to get it advertised, as you say.
Yeah. And if we have a good turnout on the 9th, it would be nice to be able to
Advertise it.
advertise it.
Now, should we try and do it later in that week, I guess? I don't know.
Did you say there's something on the 11th?
I think you got to look at January if you want to get a
Yeah,
turnout
yeah,
personally.
because,
Yeah, the tricky thing though is like, I think we would need to kind of have a plan for, like, we want to approve in January in order to figure out.
Well,
about-
I mean, you could
February.
hold a forum and then hold a special meeting in January to discuss what you gathered, and then hold a meeting to warn it. I mean,
Yeah,
We usually have special meetings in January anyways for the budgets.
yeah, I
that's
mean,
true, but I don't feel like we can really, you know, if we're like looking to hold the forum in order to make changes to the plan, like, we need time to have the facilities task force to meet with the architects and the contractors to actually change and get new estimates. You know, like, I feel like we need to do something.
I think
sooner.
we're tight. Yeah, no, I agree. I'm being just realistic with people's schedules in December. I mean,
Yeah, no,
you
I
can
know.
warn one.
Like, is there any possibility of doing something that week in December? Like, if we, I guess I guess Oh.
It's tough. I mean, I would say don't go off my counter. Ed and I are every Thursday starting on the 5th.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're already out on Tuesdays and sometimes Mondays. So I would say if you as a board pick a good date, I can even prep you for it, but I would not utilize my calendar.
Sure.
How about the 16th?
And if you have to pick a
that's
Thursday,
your
as
board
long as you get a quorum without me,
Right.
Right.
that's fine. I can be at negotiations if you just ensure that you have.
What type of night is that?
16th was
The
Monday.
Supervisor Union Board is on the 16th. But how about the 17th?
That's our board.
Oh, that's right.
December's
Okay.
pretty full. I
We
looked.
could do it before our board meeting. Just do it like,
Oh, like we did before.
if we could have dinner, basically what we did with this capstone thing.
Yeah.
We could.
Yeah, why don't we plan on
Sharon
that?
now beforehand.
What's that?
And we don't have Sharon now
Yeah,
beforehand.
so I could even be here. So just so the board knows, what we had good feedback on in Sharon was, we did a just very brief, like literally 5-minute overview of the current proposed project, okay? Like did not go into all kinds of depths. Here's the project we presented to you. Here's the cost, right? And then we said to them, we just put chart paper around, and it was like Performing Arts Center. It was school security,
Center.
whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
The shop, and we gave people 4 stickers, and they could go put their stickers on their priority. Okay, and then we came back and we said, all right, we see that the playground's really important to you. This was at Sharon, okay? And so then we said to them, all right, based on what you all see as people's priorities in the rooms right now, what questions or statements might you have about that part of the plan? And then people could either write them on note cards or they could write them on stickies and stick them on it. And we gave them like 15 minutes to engage in the process that way. And then we came back and then we had a conversation in regards to what their thinking was based on that. And I will tell you, like, it was really worthwhile because that board went from like a project that was going to be stick build to they're now seriously considering possibly their addition's going to be modular based on feedback received that night, which is going to save them about $500,000. So I was just like that, and the community I think felt incredibly engaged, like that their voices were really taken into consideration. So there could be aspects of this project that like people have some strong feelings about that we might be able to address.
Yeah.
For them, it was, you never even considered possibly addressing your space concerns with a modular. And the more we researched it, like, the quality's really improved. Like, you can actually do it in school buildings, and there's some examples now. And you can actually attach it to your building. I'm not saying that's gonna solve our problem, just saying like that was something we hadn't even considered. As
The shop expansion, maybe.
the shop expansion, some people might have some thoughts about that. Yeah. So anyways, if you wanted to, again, it did not take much for us to set it up that way, but I will say it created what I thought was a very engaging, collaborative conversation versus like a back and forth.
Right. Yeah, no, that's kind of, I think would be a good approach.
I have a question. Has the board ever scheduled a meeting, you know how you drop your kid off and they warm up before the game starts? We could get people in at that time. Has the board ever tried that, to schedule the meeting for?
Like a sporting event?
Yeah, like the hour before. Kids here, parents are here. You wait, you drop your kid off and you're waiting. Like maybe that night could work. We could
Great
get people
idea.
that maybe wouldn't have come otherwise. I don't know if that's on the schedule.
Lots of people come out
Do
for
we
the
have a?
concert.
And yeah, a lot of
Right, the
community
concert
members
thing,
like to
for
come
sure.
to the games.
I also think
Yeah.
during the merger, I think the concept of bringing it to the people versus expecting people to come to us is what we should work towards. And I know it seems a little silly, but I think Todd Sears back during the merger, like literally recorded a video and then we put it on Facebook and it got 1 million plays, maybe not 1 million, but a lot of plays. And I just wonder if we got more information out there just because people surf Facebook and watch the video. And I think everything that was said during our information was so good. It's just how do we get it to those people?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's That's a good thought. We can certainly do.
I wish
more
they
of
would
that.
just go on and watch Orca, but. They
People
don't
don't do that?
No, they could do that.
Why
Or come to
don't-
meetings.
Why don't we plan on doing kind of a forum? I don't know, I mean, I think for now, let's plan on before our next meeting, which is the 17th.
Be in Bethel.
Oh, in Bethel. Oh, that's unfortunate.
I mean, we can move the meeting to here. And then go
What
to
do you guys
Bethel in
think about that?
January.
Make it up another time.
Well, we need to do a quick vote. Way to hold the meeting, we
Yeah,
just
do
say
we
we're
need
doing
to-
it.
Do we need to vote on that, or?
Yeah, I would move it.
Okay, motion to move the next meeting to Royalton rather than Bethel campus.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, so we'll have it here on the 17th. Try and do kind of what we did here, where there'll be a meal, food provided, childcare, 6 o'clock discussion in here. Hopefully we can go do what we did last time of walking down to the various areas maybe and, get people engaged maybe. And hopefully there'll be a sporting event. And yeah, if we can come up with a way of having a table or just engaging people in discussion before the elementary concert, whatever, if that gets pulled off, and middle school concert and things like that. So, I think we could do those kind of as not official board forums, but just as a way of having a presence at these different events. But I do like that
That
idea.
calendar's already created, right?
Mhm.
We have it, so we can just
It's on
email
the-
it to you guys.
I think the concerts are in here.
Good job, Andrea. You do a
I might
nice
have removed
job.
the elementary, but if you see middle school, it's elementary and middle school. If you see high school, it's elementary and high school.
Yeah, that's-
It's just I took them off because I wasn't certain if we had SRES concert 12:12 and
Yep.
BES is 12:05. So that's.
Okay.
I think I took them off the newsletter because I wasn't certain.
Oh yeah, I mean, maybe we could have a classroom or something that we go to. I
I
don't know.
say just take 10 minutes while they all come early to get the front row anyways. Just launch
get
in
right
on
in
it while
front
they're
of 'em.
coming in to sit.
Right, but I mean, it's easy to kind of get up and talk about something when everybody's sitting there, but to get them to kind of engage would be a difficult thing. Go reserve your seat, go put your stuff down, and then come over here for a discussion or something. I don't know.
Is that the audience that needs convincing, though? Is the concert, do you know what I mean? That's why I was thinking, sports maybe would draw a different crowd than the people who already might be supportive of
But
the.
they all need convincing. I might
Do you
worry.
think so? Okay.
I don't know how. many
Especially
people
the
just
elementary.
Trust that they like the
like-
elementary, but I don't know how many of them really engage in voting, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the commenters who were saying they weren't convinced, they have elementary kids, they'd be coming to the elementary concert.
And they'd be bringing their grandparents, and there's actually you get a lot of people from elementary concerts, and you get the grandparents and the parents or extended family.
Okay. All right, well, I don't know, maybe I'll be in touch about what we can try and do for that, not in an official school board thing, but I don't know. Okay, well, our next meeting date is Tuesday, December 16th at the South Railton campus.
No, 17th. Wasn't it?
I think you're right, but it's listed as the 16th here, so that's wrong. That should be the 17th. So the board meeting will be at 7. We'll have a forum at 5:30/6. Dinner at 5:30, forum at 6. All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, everybody.